This is one of the typical plates or illustrations. It was produced in 1755 and it shows plans for a harbour to be built at Ramsgate in England. And one of the issues which this kind of artefact often raises is generated by curiosity, because it's based on the issue of, did this actual structure or this proposed structure ever get built? And if it was built, did it get built to the architect's original plans and designs, or was it modified? And so we're going to use an application called GoogleEarth in order to try to answer some of those questions, or at least to full size. I'm going to type in Ramsgate because that's the location that we're interested in. I'm going to use the fly to facility, and that should take us into Ramsgate. Now at this point we need to zoom in a little bit further, so I'm going to use the controls to zoom in and then just pull the actual picture into the middle of the screen. You can probably see already there is an actual image of the harbour. I'll zoom right in first of all, give you a little bit of an idea of Ramsgate. There's obviously a new marina that's been built in this area, and if we zoom out again we get an idea of the dimensions. Now one way we could do this, the original Enquiry, is simply to compare one image with another. So we could actually just jump between the plate, the illustration, and Google Earth. And that's quite effective in a sense, there's nothing wrong with that. It allows us to make some rough, perhaps crude guessworks. It looks very similar, but I'm not quite sure about the dimensions. However, this is where Google Earth really adds value, because it involves, or it includes, a number of tools which allows the student to actually compare images like this with what's actually there on the ground, and that's done by layering the image on top of the map. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit in order to give you a better idea of how I'm doing this. And in order to layer this image onto this Google Earth map, we need to press the layers button. That's up here, add image overlay. That brings up a dialog box which gives us the option of actually selecting an overlay. Now you'll notice it's already assumed by these green markers where you want to place the overlay. It's not such a problem if you're thinking, well, that's not quite in the right place, because it can be moved. But first of all, we need to identify the image, so we, in this case, will browse. I'm going to browse the actual library now. Quickest way for me to find it is to actually type in the word Ramsgate, because I know I've got an image, a JPEG that I've created already. If you already know where your image is residing on your computer, this would be a quicker process. And there we've got the image I'm looking for, Ramsgate. So I'm going to open that, and straight away we can see it places the image on top of the Google map. Now the immediate problem and issue, of course, is that we can't actually see very much because it's completely opaque, and it's therefore blanked out our underlying Google map. Now this is one of the tools that people often are unaware of that really can add some value to this particular exercise, and it's a transparency slider. So you can probably see here I'm going to move a transparency slider down from being totally opaque somewhere towards the midway point between opaque and clear, and we can begin to see through now to the underlying image. The next thing I'm going to do is to actually twist the image by using the little diamond tool, holding that down and twisting it to align the new image with the underlying map. I'll just move the image up so that you can see what I've done. That's where the image is now, and we can tell by moving the transparency slider down again whether or not we're right. Now I actually need to zoom in a little bit to do this. We want more of the map, so I'm going to now just fiddle. Holding the cross in the middle, for instance, allows us to move the image about, and I think it's pretty obvious from what we can see here that my image is far too big, so I'm going to zoom use the controls here and here to bring this JPEG image more or less into proportion. This might take a little bit of time. This is probably the hardest part of the exercise. It might be easy just to zoom out for a second and try to do that. We're beginning to get it about right now. Clearly probably need a little bit more opaqueness so I can see. Yeah. So gradually manipulating the image. I think it needs to be twisted, for instance, a little bit. Let's just twist that around, move it a little bit until we feel we're getting there. Now I'm going to zoom right in now, and to do this I'm going to bring the opaqueness back up, fully opaque, and I think I've got it far too, still got it too large, so let's just zoom out a bit. And one of the indicators is the coastline. If we have a look, you can see that the coastline in 1755 appears to be there, and that's not bad. We're beginning to get the coastline roughly into place, maybe a little bit more twisting. It takes a little bit of time to get this procedure right, but it's worth persevering with. Let's knock it back down. And now we can see that we just need to move that into there. Let's squash the dimensions slightly, and we're just about done. I'll just bring the opaqueness up again. That's fully opaque, and we can see that's where the proposed harbour was going to be built. And if we take the opaqueness right down so that we can see through to the underlying map, we can see that's where the current day harbour is. So let's just bring that back. One of the other advantages, once you've set your image on top, it's scaled up and down every time you come in and out of Google Earth as well, so it doesn't actually change. I think we've just about got that right. Okay. Okay, so now we've got the image or the overlay correctly proportioned on top of Google Earth. We can control the amount of opacity, making it solid, thus, or deciding to actually make it completely transparent. Okay, we're maybe happy with that, and we can fix it. And what we want to do now is experiment in actually trying to identify whether or not this is the original harbour, whether it was built to scale. And one way we can do that, if we actually go to the original image, we see that it's defined as being just over 800 feet across from one side to the other. And if we were to use a tape measure, a measurement across there, we'd be able to work out that this is about 1200 feet across. Now we can do a similar kind of measurement on the Google map, zoom in, and we want to be measuring from here to here, and to do this we can use the measuring tool, which allows us to measure a path or a line. In this case it's a line because it's between two individual points. So I'm going to put a marker down there by clicking. I'm going to stretch it right across to the other edge of the harbour mouth, I'm going to click again, and that tells us that it's 0.49 kilometres, but we want to translate that into feet, so we'll turn that into feet, and it's about 1600 feet. Now that indicates that the original plan was somewhat inaccurate in its estimation of what that distance was, or that they stretched the actual proportions slightly. And what we can also tell, of course, is that if we zoom out, a considerable degree of extra building has taken place around the western side of the harbour, because the original harbour would have been here, but much of the new building is on the west. So that illustrates how we can use a tool like GoogleEarth to add value to one of the digital resources. A simple image that we've taken from the JISC 18th century parliamentary papers collection and superimposed on top of a Google image map. And I'm sure you can think of many similar applications in which you could use GoogleEarth to understand and to inquire into a problem around perhaps another image that you've superimposed on the top of it, as I've done here with the map of Ramsgate.